June 28th, 2016. If you are a women's basketball fan, you'll remember this day for as long as you live. With that, folks, good morning, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome to a special daytime edition of the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7, 365 comprehensive home for everything revolving around the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball universe. Joining you folks today on a very somber day in the women's basketball world as we have lost a true legend for our great game of women's basketball, the legendary Pat Summitt. 38 years at the helm of the University of Tennessee women's basketball team, passing away today after a 5-year battle with Alzheimer's at the age of 64. Good morning, folks. Callum McClure joining you inside of Central Hub here, Studio 171 in San Diego, California, on another bright and sunny day in San Diego, but in my case today has been a very cloudy and very sad day for the entire women's basketball fan base as we all share our grief and our gratitude towards the legendary Pat Summitt. We will be here, folks, for at least the next 2 hours. We will more than likely not be joined by anybody from our broadcast team today, as of course this is a kind of last minute but very early start to our broadcast day. As a reminder, folks, again, there will be no coverage of the WNBA 365 network this evening due to the events of today. We are going to be taking tonight off as well due to the events of today with Pat Summitt. There are 2 games to be played, though, in the WNBA. We can imagine all 4 teams will play with very heavy hearts this evening. Atlanta at Seattle at 7 on ESPN3. And on ESPN2 at 7 o'clock, Dallas will take on Los Angeles. There are 3 players under Pat Summitt's umbrella from the University of Tennessee that, as of right now, we cannot confirm nor deny that they will be playing tonight, but Megan Simmons, Glory Johnson, and Candace Parker, all 3 players are slated to play in their respective games tonight. But again, we have no confirmation or denial from any party involved with the 4 teams involved with today's games about anything in regards to those 3 players not playing, but we will assume as well that there will be a moment of silence before both games today and probably throughout the remainder of the week as we, again, mourn the loss of a true basketball professional, a true basketball icon. Again, Pat Summitt passing away about 3:08 Pacific time this morning. Again, 5:08 Central Time, 6:08 a.m. Eastern Time, from a 5-year bout with Alzheimer's. Pat, a 8-time national champion after being at the helm of the Tennessee Lady Vols for 38 years in her illustrious career. 8-time champion in 87, 89, 91, 3 in a row, 96, 97, 98, and then her last 2 titles in 2007 and 2008. Pat had won over 1,000 games in her illustrious career, finishing with a .841 win percentage, going 1,098 and 208, won 16 SEC titles, was a 16-time tournament champion, was voted 8 times as the SEC Coach of the Year, and 7 times was the NCAA Coach of the Year, was also named the Coach of the 20th Century, and in 2012 was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But ladies and gentlemen, the big stat, though, that I have pounded home in my notes, to my mom, to anyone I've talked to again, is Pat Summitt's incredible stretch of 38 straight years. Over that span, over 161 athletes have gone through her program, and all 160 of those student athletes got their degrees from the University of Tennessee. And I believe that in spite of everything, the winning and the championships, that is probably Pat's signature moment of her coaching career, professionally with or collegiately, is a very hard feat to do. Is at high school level, college levels, to have all of your players across 2 years at JC level or all 4, for all your players to get their degree and achieve their scholastic dreams. I mean, that is a very incredible accomplishment for Pat Summitt. Again, 100%. All 161 of her players that came through her program in 38 years all went on for their degrees and did graduate with their degrees from Tennessee here this morning. There's been an outpouring of love and support, folks, since the story broke earlier today. Again, once more with what has occurred with the very tragic news again. We'll get to some tweets from earlier in the day from some of the members of the assembled sports world and women's basketball world. One tweet from former standout at Tennessee from Kara Lawson. Kara earlier this morning saying, basically gutted, I love you, Thank you. From Kara Lawson on Twitter, from current Tennessee head coach Holly Warlick. She says, my heart is broken. Pat and I shared a very special bond that will never be broken. I love you, Pat, from Holly Warlick on Twitter. And one more from current South Carolina coach and former WNBA great Don Staley. Don tweeted saying, a sad day in my life and the entire WBB community. Pat Summitt, thank you for sharing your passion and love for the game with all of us. Again, folks, we will also open social media to you folks for the entire course of our program, whether we go half an hour, or to our 2-hour time frame. Hit us up on Twitter at WNBA365 or at Calamac3, or please hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/WNBA365. You can, of course, as well chime in on the live viewing page like normal here this morning. And again, folks, as a reminder once more, there will be no WNBA 365 network programming this evening due to the nature of today's events in regards to Pat's passing again, and also for the games tonight. Again, folks, as another reminder as well, we'll kind of update you on the stats again, but again, 2 games tonight, and 3 players under Coach Summitt's umbrella are playing in the games tonight. Megan Simmons of Atlanta, Glory Johnson and Candace Parker will play each other tonight in Los Angeles. But again, nothing confirmed, nothing said yet from Atlanta, Dallas, or LA about the status of those 3 players, as they are more likely perhaps will play in this game or their games this evening. Back to some more of the Twitter reaction. A tweet from Timberwolves player and last year's Rookie of the Year, Karl Anthony Towns, who says that this is a truly sad day for the game of basketball with the passing of Pat Summitt, a true pioneer. Kentucky men's basketball coach John Calipari saying, would there be a WNBA without her influence? Rest in peace, Pat. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family. And from Orlando Magic player Tobias Harris, he says Pat Summitt was just more than an amazing coach. He was also an amazing person, always encouraging every time we cross paths. Rest in peace, from Tobias Harris. So some of the men's basketball world also showing their love and appreciation. And ladies and gentlemen, from what I've seen the other day from about 6 o'clock this morning local time till now is kind of a different day on Twitter in regards to how the women's basketball community, the women's basketball world, has been treated by a lot of the fans out there across Bleacher Report. We've seen a lot of good stuff from a lot of great people, and the outpouring of support for Pat Summitt towards her players, towards the Tennessee family. By the way, also a quick note for anyone in the area that may want to go visit Pat's statue. A report out today from the Tennessee Athletic Department. Pat's statue will be open. They are also providing free parking on the East Garage near the TBA on campus. But again, Pat's statue and plaza is open for anyone to go leave flowers or leave any mementos behind at Pat's statue site over there in Knoxville, Tennessee, on the campus of the University of Tennessee. Getting back to more about this again, ladies and gentlemen, once more, but of course, Pat Summitt, who by far I believe is probably one of the top 5, if not the greatest coach, men or women. You can throw John Wooden in there. You can throw currently Gino Auriemma, who had a very great quote today, folks. And I agree with Gino saying that Pat is going to be, has been, and always will be the measuring stick of how we will now measure college coaches, of how she went above the call of duty towards every player she was coaching, and was really that mother figure towards her, towards all those 161 student athletes that came through the program and got their degrees, folks. I think that it's been pretty much said all day so far, again, from a time about 6:30 this morning when I had gotten up today, in regards to reading the stories and seeing the outpouring support that that we really have lost a shining light. We've lost a pioneer for this great game of women's basketball, who not only excelled on the court as a coach or even a player, but what she's meant, though, to the foundation for the sport. Again, probably the one that was the big advocate for women's, or more so gender equality back in the when she first got the job at age 22, like I am here right now sitting with the folks this morning, and how she battled for every little thing for not just her program at Tennessee, but was looking out for her other schools, and maybe even for now, again, of how we've seen Pat and the legacy she's left behind from the way back Pat games that have been across the college levels, even down to the high school ranks across the country and even around the world. Seeing some of the stuff today from the SEC network and from ESPN2 today, fighting for the bigger locker room at TBA. Of course, they were kind of thrown into like a small utility closet, it seemed like, but she battled for that, battled for getting games on television. Of course, the greatest rivalry maybe in all of college basketball at any level, Duke versus, not Duke, but UConn versus Tennessee for so many years, dominating the 90s, dominating the early 2000s, the mid-2000s, and how that rivalry, between those two schools, plus you have the two greatest coaches in women's basketball with Gino and Pat on national TV, on CBS or on ESPN, of how that rivalry really sparked interest, really brought people into the game, and of course sold out, Gampel Pavilion, sold out XL Center, sold out Thompson Boiling Arena, of how that rivalry and those two coaches really put women's basketball on the map in the U.S., made it bigger around the world because of the influence that Pat Summitt had over the entire NCAA in regards to everything she's meant to so many people here today. But again, they're really, I think we pretty much have already in 11 minutes have really touched base about everything going on at this point. One quick tweet just in from Breanna Stewart, who tweeted, "Wow, just woke up to some shocking news. R.I.P. to the pioneer of women's basketball, Pat Summitt, a legend. Thank you, and you will be missed." So Breanna Stewart with some nice words there, and again, just a lot of very good responses from a lot of great people. Back to Twitter. Syracuse Orange men's coach Jim Boeheim says Pat Summitt was one of the world's great basketball coaches. Condolences to her family and Tennessee basketball. Ohio State football coach Urban Meyer says thoughts and prayers to the families of both Pat Summitt and Buddy Ryan, legendary coaches and true champions whose legacies will last. And from tennis great Billie Jean King, Coach Pat Summitt was an all-time great with a brilliant mind, a love of basketball, and a deep loyalty to all around her. She will be missed. More great stuff from the sports world again. And if anyone out there again wants to share any stories in regards to Pat Summitt or what she's meant to you as a fan, or what have you, folks, can on Twitter at WNBA365, at Calamac3, on Facebook at facebook.com/WNBA365, or in the live chat box. We'll get to your commentary throughout the entire portion of our program. A program alert for you folks off beat. For today, you can catch coverage of Pat Summitt, or you can catch coverage right now, at least from last I saw on television. They are rerunning all 8, it looks like, of Pat Summitt's national title games on ESPN Classic. SEC Network is covering the events as well throughout the course of the day, and also ESPN2 has also been covering the action as well with Pat and also with Buddy Ryan. So again, you can tune into ESPN2, the SEC Network, or also tune in to ESPN Classic for more about Pat Summitt again. And from what we gathered again, but ESPN Classic is rerunning all 8 of Pat Summitt's national championship victories throughout the course of the day. And also the SEC Network is also having extensive coverage as well, and ESPN2 has moved some of their programming to ESPN while Wimbledon was scheduled, but they have moved some of their programming from ESPN2 to ESPN News and ESPN at this point, and also ESPN3 to kind of make way for Pat Summitt as they continue to talk about Pat and her legacy. A quick alert for anyone in D.C., Christy Winters-Scott will be joining ESPN 980 in D.C. coming up at 2 o'clock or 2:45 Eastern. That is at 11:45 a.m. Pacific time on ESPN 980 in the D.C. area to talk about Pat Summitt's everlasting legacy as well this morning at this point. Again, we do not have any official confirmation, folks, as we do now actually welcome in a member of our broadcast team. We welcome in Marquez Anderson of the Project Spurs Network. Marquez, thanks a lot, buddy, for taking time out of the day to come and join us here. How's it going today? I know it's been a very rough day for a lot of us, but how's it going?
Oh, yeah, it's good. I was really sad at first because, it's Pat Summitt, but I'm doing better now.
So again, folks, with Marquez in here again, Twitter is open for anybody. You can follow Marquez on Twitter at his handles at @omarquez. And again, Marquez, we really do value and appreciate you dropping by this morning and now this afternoon over in Louisiana. Marquez, again, I'm probably just go with the age-old question again about something like this, but when he first got word of Pat's passing, what was your initial reaction to hearing that news this morning?
Well, I woke up this morning not knowing at first, and I just woke up out of my sleep earlier than I normally do at like 8 a.m. our time, because I was just feeling really weird about something. So I go on Twitter to, like, I guess, be entertained by something. Then I just see all over the place that she had passed away, and immediately I kind of had a breakdown because I just started remembering all the things that I remembered about her. Because I mean, I started watching women's basketball in 2008. I was 10 years old. And the funny thing is, I'm a huge LSU fan, still am, and I always have been. And at that time, LSU and Tennessee, they would go back and forth all the time for SEC championships, Final Fours. And Pat was really one of those people that I can point to and say she was one of those core people that I can really remember. And I really started getting interested in when I started watching. But at the time, I didn't exactly know how big her impact was with people. I just knew she was the coach of this school that I couldn't stand because they kept beating us and we couldn't get past them quite yet. But as I got older, I just was able to realize and appreciate how much she's done for people in general. And it is really hard considering how she passed away with her disease, and it just really took a toll on me today. And I've been feeling pretty off about it all day.
Folks, a quick tweet that was just retweeted by LSU coach Nikki McCray from Ariel Massengale, who's one of the other players under Pat's umbrella at Tennessee. Ariel's tweet reads, "Coach, please teach my baby cousin Ashton how to play ball and tell my grandmother I said hello and I love her. Hashtag my guardian angels." Again, a lot of great support today from the women's basketball community. And I think, Marquez, to bank off your point with this, in regards to me again, and and I was going to get to this later on, but I maybe should have gone to it beforehand, excuse me, the fact of, 12 years as a fan, for me is kind of, that's half my life. I'm 22 and I've been a fan since I was 12. While it started at UConn, but, Pat Summitt, though, something about her just, I'm not sure what it really was, but, Pat's influence, I guess, on the game, the players that she had, though, in 04, in 05, and then, of course, Candace Parker in 06, from her time there from 07 to 08, was sort of the time that got me back into women's basketball because I kind of had that a little bit of a dry spell following Diana Taurasi going into the draft in 04. And then, and I think, though, that as well was of the way that Pat Summitt really not only carried herself, but the way, though, again, of how she ran her program. She'd give you that stare, the ever famous Summitt stare that that would make me fake laugh or just laugh in general today to kind of take my mind away from getting a little emotional, and I have been, of course, everyone else has so far today. But I just think that there's a lot of ways we can go with this. And another quick tweet, folks, from Shamika Holtzclaw, a player that was by far one of the greatest in Tennessee history. She says, "The world lost a superhero today, Pat Summitt, today," and she had put out a flipagram on her Flipagram account, but she does say the world lost a superhero today in regards to Pat Summitt's passing. But, Marquez, I look back at some of Pat's accolades again, and the thing, though, that I have tried to drive home, and I have driven home today, was it's not, in my case, it's not about, maybe in a small case, but in my case, it's not about the championships, not about the 1,000 wins or the other titles or accolades, again, Marquez. It's the fact that Pat Summitt had a 100%, 161 student athletes that became her daughters after it was all said and done. Every player under Pat's umbrella in 38 straight years went on to achieve and graduate from the University of Tennessee. Marquez, I even said, that is a feat that no high school coach, no college coach could put a price tag on, but Pat Summitt really exemplified the true meaning and definition of the two words of student athlete. Do you agree with that? And also, what is the impact, though, on that very good stat to know, again, a 100%, 38 straight years of everyone on the team graduating from college.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you hear stories about from her players saying how if they miss class, that was really the number one no-no for in her book. Like if you skipped, you couldn't play. And I think that really goes to show how much she cared about her former players and her players in general in terms of not only on the court but what they did after. She wanted you to succeed on the court and after, because of course everyone isn't able to play professionally after, and that was really something she hit home with them. Is if you can't play professionally afterwards, what are you going to do? What can you bank on? And even if you do make it in the pros, you can't play forever. So what will you do after that's going to put you in a position to succeed after basketball is over for you? And you really sometimes you don't really see that with coaches now, and it's really sad to see because, I mean, sometimes it's just bigger than basketball, and that's what Pat stood for.
Again, folks, Callum McClurg and Marquez Anderson on the daytime edition of WNBA 365, a special edition show again, reflecting and celebrating the life of the great, the legend herself, Pat Summitt again, who passed away following a 5-year battle with Alzheimer's disease. Pat Summitt was 64 years old. And Marquez, I think the thing that really, I guess, further added to Pat's legacy was how, when she first was diagnosed in 2011, of how she didn't go down easy. She still coached the team for that season following, and in 2012 before she ended up calling it quits. And Marquez, I remember, Jim Valvano, the legendary coach from Rutgers or from Louisville, one of those two. It eludes me from '93, but with Jim Valvano, of course, made the very famous speech at the ESPY Awards. Again, there's three things you should do during the course of the day for a full day. That's laugh, think, and cry. And then and with Coach Valvano coaching while he, and then with his coaching career, then following that up with him battling cancer, and then seeing Pat coaching with Alzheimer's. I guess, Marquez, what's the everlasting legacy, though, of both Coach Valvano and Coach Summitt both coaching while battling personal problems as well with potentially and then sadly life-ending illnesses such as the Alzheimer's for Pat and then the cancer for Jim Valvano?
I just think it goes to show that no matter what condition you're in, if you're passionate about something, you're going to push through and fight. And I think with those two, they just showed us that no matter what you go through, impacting and inspiring and helping those around you, it's bigger than what's going on in your life, because there may be someone that's going through something 10 times worse. And with them, it just showed how dedicated they were to what they did, because, they didn't have to. They could have just folded and quit, but they didn't, because they loved what they did. They loved who they did it for, and they lived for it.
Getting back to some more of the Sports World Twitter reaction, folks. Legendary U.S. Women's National Team soccer player Mia Hamm tweeted today, "Thank you, Pat, for teaching me to be fearless with grace and humanity, and thank you for being a mentor to so many of us." Close tweet. Maryland head coach Brenda Fries tweeted, "Remembering all Pat Summitt did for our game in all women's sports, her legacy will live on." And current U.S. Women's National Soccer Team player Megan Klingenberg, in a 2-part tweet, said, "Growing up, I read all of Pat Summitt's books, absorbed her coaching lessons, and watched her in fascination as she coached the Lady Vols. Thank you for showing women how to be tough and relentless and relentless in their pursuit of greatness while executing grace and class." At this point, praying for the families of Pat Summitt and Buddy Ryan, two of the best coaches of all time, from Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson, also letting his known, or also passing along his gratitude today as well. And Marquez, I think it is important, though, to note, again, folks, that there are games to be played tonight in spite of the events of today. Again, Atlanta, Seattle at 7 on ESPN3, and Dallas, Los Angeles on ESPN2 at 7 o'clock tonight on the ESPN family of networks. Marquez, I would probably speculate, assume, but say there will be some type of a moment of silence in Seattle and LA. But more so, Marquez, my mind, though, my heart, though, they all shift to Megan Simmons, Glory Johnson, and Candace Parker, who, again, we have no no type of communication yet about the status of those three players, whether they will play or not. But Marquez, I can only imagine what's going to be going through the minds of those three players. I know they know that there is a job to do, but at the same time, they're going to be having a heavy heart and heavy mind this evening. Marquez, what is your thought or indication about what might transpire in regards to any type of memorial for Pat, in regards to moment of silence, maybe something in regards to wearing orange, or and also your thoughts about Simmons, Johnson, and Parker also playing on a very emotional day for them?
Um, if they're able to play after their coach passing on, it just takes strength. Because I mean, I know it's really hard on them. I've seen everything they've said and things they've posted, and you can just tell that it's been hard on them since day one. And whatever ESPN decides to do, I just know it's probably going to bring me to tears. Like her SB speech when she did it, I was bawling in my room because this is just someone that you've grown up knowing that's been so strong and powerful and intimidating. To just see her so vulnerable sometimes, it just really does something to you.
Folks, a quick note for our friends in the Tennessee area. Governor Bill Haslam tweeted out at 9:35 San Diego time, Pacific time, saying that the flags will be lowered to half staff over the Nashville Capitol building in offices in honor of Pat Summitt through sunset on Thursday, June 30th. So again, flags will be at half staff in Nashville and in Tennessee, at least in downtown Nashville, up until sundown on Thursday. June the 30th. And, Marquez, also looking back at some more of Pat's things as well, 31 NCAA tournament appearances, most by any coach. I mean, if that's not, the true definition of consistency, I mean, I don't know who else could really define that. But again, 31 appearances, and I believe that was all consecutive as well for Pat Summitt, along with all the other accolades. Just looking over some of the other things here. I think, though, Marquez, the other defining moment, though, for Pat Summitt, though, was in 2012 when President Obama awarded her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And also, folks, President Obama with a very, very well put out and very well said and from the heart statement put out today from the White House on Twitter about Pat's legacy, and also, Marquez, of how President Obama said that Pat Summitt, really was an influence on his two daughters, in regards to how that him and Michelle have raised their kids, and also of the impact that she had on their lives. Marquez, how about your thoughts, though, from the White House about Pat Summitt's legacy on both President Obama and First Lady Michelle's children again today, and also about final thoughts, so again, about President Obama issuing and giving out Pat Summitt the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012?
Yeah, it just goes to show how far her legacy reached people. I mean, you'll be hard pressed to find someone that hasn't been either inspired by Pat or just aware of what she's done for the game in general. And I just think today it's been really special for a lot of people because they have been able to reflect and just remember what she's done for them or their children. And I just think it goes to show how special Pat was to so many different people. And not many people can say something like that.
Again, folks, Cal McClurg, Marquez Anderson joining you folks here this morning and afternoon, wherever you may be joining us from here on the WNBA 365 Network, reliving and celebrating and reflecting on a very, very amazing career for a very special person, legendary Tennessee Lady Vols head coach Pat Summitt. And that is the biggest thing, though, Marquez, that a lot of that I also wanted to bring up, too, was, again, of how Pat Summitt, again, as I already said about gender equality, but how she really changed the branding, changed the identity, and brought a fresh identity to the specifically the women's basketball team, again, of how she added the Lady Vols into the equation. And I think it was very, very sad and cruel irony that I was looking through my yearbook from my high school senior year in 2012 and how our women's basketball team had Lady Comets on the front of their uniform. And I thought this morning, that is very sad but very cruel irony of, that's something, though, from Pat Summitt, again, if you add that as you go and add Lady to your women's sports teams. We see a lot, we kind of see it more so with the probably other than Tennessee, maybe the Cowgirls with the University of Wyoming or Oklahoma State, or even the Rainbow Wahine over at the University of Hawaii. But I guess, Marquez, talk a bit about the influence that Pat Summitt had on not just her program, but other women's athletic programs at other universities, again, with how they have, sort of followed Pat's path and changed their identity to incorporate the lady aspect of their team nicknames.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee was just that program that you wanted to be and emulate in every aspect. They won, they changed so many things, and for Pat in general, she was just that trailblazer for many. And I think the adding the lady, it just really was a way to separate. Pat was like, we stand on our own. We are a different sport, but in a good way. She wanted, I think adding that just provided a sense of identity for her team, not only on Tennessee's campus, but around the country for other schools as well.
Getting back to some more of the sports world reaction, folks, from former U.S. soccer great Abby Wambach. Abby tweeted today, R.I.P. Pat Summitt, a legend and personal hero of mine for many, many years. Soon to be Vanderbilt coach Carolyn Peck tweeted today, the impact that Pat Summitt had on people is as great as her impact on the game. As I coach and as I live, I will always think, what would Pat do? Close quote. And from ESPN's College Football Game Day, Desmond Howard, former Michigan football standout, saying, I never met the hardworking farm girl turned hoops coach Pat Summitt, but I will always respect her grind and hustle and loved the, quote, icy stare, R.I.P. And like I said, Marquez, that was, another thing that Pat Summitt really made famous was, that glare, that blue, that very, ice-cold blue eye look she'd give an official when she'd blow up in their face or blow up at a player. Marquez, I know that perhaps it was a little intimidating for players to, sometimes talk to their coach face-to-face. Marquez, when you think of Pat Summitt, other than the icy stare, what else do you probably remember from Pat on the sidelines during the course of a game?
She fought for her players every possession down. Like I said, as a kid watching her team battle mine, it was just epic in terms of her personality on the side. She was really passionate about winning and her team. And I think she was really one of the main people that I saw that would always go down and fight for her team, win or lose. And she didn't make excuses, though. That was one thing. She never would blame the officials for this. It was always you. She made you own it. And I think that's what made her such a great coach, was that she didn't play the entitled thing. She didn't make the excuses. She took full ownership of her team's mistakes, whether it be for her or just she put it on the team in general.
We'll get to one more tweet, folks, from the sports world from Asia Wilson. Asia tweeted today, heart is heavy. RIP, Coach Summitt. Thank you for all that you've done for the women's game. Truly a legend. Hashtag RIP from Asia Wilson. Also tweeting in this morning and earlier today. Looking back over some more of the stuff rendering on social media, folks. Again, we've had a very great outpouring of support. And Marquez, it does now bring me to a point, though, I wanted to bring across as well as a question posted to viewers, but also now to you, is, do you believe now that perhaps, now that Pat has sadly, left us again this morning, do you believe now that the We Back Pat game is now going to become a, full-on tradition amongst the entire women's basketball landscape, from high schools to colleges now to the pros in your mind, probably beginning sometime next season?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because the sad thing about it is her disease doesn't have a cure yet. And I think now, considering it was Pat, and there's so many other people that have been affected by it, it's just something that needs to be made bigger. People need to be more aware about it, because I think the misconception about Alzheimer's is that you just lose your memory. But it's so much more to it than that. And I think the game and her foundation is going to bring awareness to stuff like that.
Also, folks, one tweet from Big Diesel himself, from Shaquille O'Neal, who tweeted out today saying, rest in heaven, Coach Pat Summitt, hashtag legend. Going to some more tweets real quick as well. From LA Sparks owner and Lakers great Magic Johnson. Magic tweeted out today a two-part tweet, but more so saying, Marquez, this is how influential that Pat was. Magic Johnson tweets today, Coach Pat Summitt, you were the reason I started following women's college basketball. And Marquez, that is the impact, the chapter, the verse, the lyrics of a song. That's the point that a lot of people have driven home today, is the fact of how much Pat Summitt, again, really put the women's basketball game on the map, along with Gino Ariema, as I said, that rivalry between UConn and Tennessee for so many years really made this sport, what it is now. And you still can see it. You can still feel Pat's presence in the women's game. Marquez, what are your thoughts about Magic Johnson's quote of how Pat Summitt really made people enjoy and become fans of the women's basketball game?
Yeah, she made people take the sport seriously. I mean, Title IX was something that made you have it, but she was one of those people that made you respect it and watch it because of her and her team and everything that surrounded it. And she, like I said, she's inspired so many people by just the way she's impacted and helped the game, period. It's just amazing to see how one person can really do so much for one specific thing.
Also, a very good tweet, Marquez, from LA Sparks player Chelsea Gray. I totally agree with her 100%. She says, I know Kay Yao is embracing Pat Summitt with open arms. R.I.P. Pat Summitt. And, you know, Marquez, I actually announced my first ever Kay Yao game at Point Loma Nazarene University this past season against Hawaii Pacific University. And that game was something very special to me because of what Kay first was to all of us in regards to raising awareness for breast cancer when she was still coaching at North Carolina State again, and how she turned a program around at NC State, and also what she meant to the game, though, as well with the NC Wolfpack. But now there are two amazing women's basketball legends, now up there, now upstairs, and I know that they are having, you know, many good conversations about maybe their little rivalry when they were coaching or even playing against each other. Marquez, though, what is your thoughts, though, about the legacy, not just Pat Summitt, but now that both Pat and Kay have now left behind for the future of women's basketball again, battling both Alzheimer's and, of course, battling breast cancer in your mind?
Yeah, they both were really strong in what they did and how they wanted people to become more aware of what was not only their battles but so many other people's battle, because so many others have been affected by that. And I think both of them, in terms of their coaching and just their ability to stay strong for those around them, it's just something that you can really look up to, because not many people are able to keep going and fighting and pushing like those two did. And one of my favorite quotes from Pat is how she said that, yeah, she's had a couple of why me moments when she got diagnosed, but the thing that kept her pushing was just the many happy things that she has been able to do in her life and can learn from and take with us.
Absolutely. A tweet real quick from David Scott of ESPN. A quote from SEC Network and radio host Paul Feinbaum, who says, quote, she didn't just open the door for women, she kicked it down, close quote, in regards to Paul discussing Pat Summitt. And again, folks, as a reminder once more, there are 3 networks that are carrying some portion or part of Pat Summitt coverage today on the ESPN family of networks. Again, as of right now, all 8 of Pat Summitt's title wins can be seen on ESPN Classic. The SEC network is having extended coverage today on the SEC network, and ESPN2 has covered Pat Summitt and Buddy Ryan, but also have covered Pat Summitt since the 6 a.m. hour Pacific time, at least, of SportsCenter on ESPN2. Regular programming for ESPN can be caught on ESPN News at this point in time, from what I last gathered on ESPN. As a reminder, folks, once more for us here on the network, again, we have canceled our programming for the night due to the severity of today's events. And once more, again, Atlanta, Seattle at 7 o'clock, and Dallas, Los Angeles also, your 2-game Tuesday schedule on ESPN2. And again, once more, we'll just reiterate, but again, no word on the status of Megan Simmons, Glory Johnson, or Candace Parker yet, but we will probably assume that they will play this evening. Also from Tyler Summitt in a statement today from the family of Pat Summitt, Tyler did confirm for all to say that there will be a private ceremony held for Pat sometime this week, but there will be a public viewing also later this week or next week at Thompson Boiling Arena on the campus of the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And again, for anyone that may want to go visit Pat's Plaza at Tennessee, the athletic department did tweet out today, the plaza will be open and there will be parking at a garage on the east side of TBA for anyone to go and visit the statue and plaza for Pat Summitt, again, who we sadly, folks, lost at about 3:08 a.m. Pacific time this morning here today from a 5-year battle with Alzheimer's disease. Callum McClure, Marquez Anderson holding on the fort here from San Diego here, and also from the Project Spurs Network. Marquez, as you kind of think back Marcus, let's kind of go back and touch base again about Gino Ariema's quote today again, of how he really said again that Pat Summitt, is going to forever be the measuring stick of how women's basketball coaches will now measure themselves by for all of eternity again, because that is the impact that Pat Summitt had on us. And again, as I said earlier, once more in regards to this, that again of how Gino and Pat again really put this game, this sport on the map, and how much their rivalry really meant to the women's basketball fan base. I mean, UConn Tennessee games, were always sold out in Bridgeport, either at Gamble Pavilion, at Exo Center, at TBA, or anywhere else. And whenever it's tournament time, those games were always sold out. Marquez, what is the final impact on the legendary UConn-Tennessee rivalry with Pat Summitt and Gino Ariema at the helm of both of their teams in your mind?
Oh yeah, like you said, those matchups were like people were always circling those down, and it's unfortunate that they don't play as frequently anymore. And I hope they pick it up because I mean it was just a game that did so much to not only draw attention to the sport but just showcase those two coaching styles and their abilities with their teams. And I just think with Pat and Gino, those are two people that a lot of people can say they're just legends in women's basketball because of how their teams have been able or were able to dominate. And not many people have been able to do those things but those two. And I just think that game, it just did so much for everyone in general in terms of media attention and fan interest, that it's really hard pressed to find something as similar as that.
Again, folks, Cal McClurdy and Marquez Anderson with you folks here this morning and afternoon, wherever you may be joining us from, folks. Again, here on a very, very emotional day and sad days we mourn the loss of Pat Summitt here on the WNBA 365 network. A quick tweet from LA Clippers guard Chris Paul. He says, Pat, thank you for everything you did for the game. Your legacy will forever live on. My condolences to your family and loved ones. And I think, Marquez, the biggest thing, that this has not been a typical women's basketball day. As you folks, again, as Marquez, you and I both know, some fans or viewers out there may not know, again, of what really goes on when there's a story put out by SportsCenter or ESPN or Fox or anyone out there about the WNBA or women's basketball, of how the keyboard warriors come out, and make their voices heard about their displeasure for the game. But today, Marquez, it's been a very, very different day because I believe some player put it out today that, it doesn't matter if you like the game or not, or actually it was a fan that actually put this out on a story ESPN put up. They said, I may not be a WNBA or women's sports fan, but Pat Summitt, really, made a huge impact on my life. And that's the thing, though, that maybe gets lost in the shuffle is while there may not be WNBA or women's basketball or women's sports fans that, want to say their stuff about the sports, but Marquez, that's the impact, that's the influence, that is how much Pat Summitt has meant to so many people, regardless if they like women's sports or not. Marquez, what are your thoughts, though, again, about how today's been a very different day for the women's basketball community, again, of how we've seen more outpouring of love and support about Pat's passing more than what we normally get on a regular day, because it's been very, very, not only emotional, but very good to see, though, during this very dark time for the women's basketball community.
Yeah, it's been fantastic because, it's Pat Summitt. She's one of those people that you can't say anything negative about because she's done everything, and she's done it the right way. And today has just it's been hard for a lot of people. Like, I know a lot of people have cried or wondered why it had to be Pat so soon, but I've been really pleasantly surprised and just happy to see the outpouring from so many different people.
Revisiting, folks, not much else happening on Twitter. We'll just throw it out for you folks one more time. But again, Twitter is open. If you have any stories you want to send, please send them our way. We'll give you a shout out on the air. It's at WNBA365, at Calamac3, at O Marquez, or on our Facebook page over at facebook.com/WNBA365. As again, we are honoring one of the was and the best there ever will be, Pat Summitt, again, legendary women's basketball coach at Tennessee, passing away earlier this morning. Again, reported and confirmed at about 3:10 Pacific time this morning here in San Diego and also across the U.S. here today, as again we've had a very monumental loss here for the women's basketball world. Again, Marquez, there's not many, or really not much else to really touch base on. One quick tweet, folks, actually, one quick tweet from best-selling author Jeff Pearlman, who tweeted, Buddy Ryan and Pat Summitt, 2 huge sports deaths in one day, R.I.P. and R.I.P. Jeff Pearlman with a tweet about Pat Summitt here this morning. Again, 10:45 Pacific time right now, 1:45 on the East Coast. And again, folks, we greatly appreciate you folks stopping by and joining us again on this very special edition of our program. Again, we're not used to being here in the morning, but Marquez, whenever you can talk about someone as beneficial to the sports world, the women's basketball world, as Pat Summitt, you can wake up at 6:30 in the morning, watch some stuff on ESPN, and really enjoy what Pat Summitt has meant to this great game of basketball here today. Just once more again, folks, to reiterate, but again, you can catch the 2 games today. There are 2 games. They are scheduled to be played today. Dream and Storm at 7 o'clock on ESPN3. Dallas and Los Angeles also at 7 o'clock here again today. And once more again, no official word about the status of Megan Simmons, Glory Johnson, or Candace Parker. And today, Marquez, more so, Kara Lawson today was one of the first people to join SportsCenter or join ESPN. And her and Shamika Holzclaw, 2 of the best players that played at Tennessee, and just hearing them, share the stories about that, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that Tennessee locker room during the time that Shamika was there, Kara was there, Catch was there, CP was there. Marquez, what are your thoughts about hearing some of the stories, though, that Kara and Shamika both shared on the earlier editions of SportsCenter this morning?
Oh yeah, it was great because I mean, like I said earlier, many people don't really get to see that side of Pat, the caring, loving side. You just saw that hard, feisty, fiery, intimidating figure, and hearing those stories about her and all the fun things she's done with those women, it's great.
Again, folks, once more, but again, Pat Summitt, the legend herself, again, passing away. Pat had won 8 national titles at University of Tennessee, 1,098 and 208. Her final record, an 841 win percentage. 16 times they won they won the conference title. They were tournament champs 16 times. She was an 8-time Coach of the Year, 7-time NCAA Coach of the Year. Was also named Coach of the 20th Century, and was also given the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And Marquez, I think the theme that was about how Pat Summitt also was a Olympic player and a Olympic coach for the U.S. women's national basketball team, playing with the likes of Ann Myers, Drysdale, and so many other legends. Marquez, how about the impact though that Pat Summitt though also left on the U.S. women's national basketball team as well? Because again, she played for the team and won silver and then won gold as well as the coach. So how about her impact on the international game though as well?
It just shows that she could do anything and everything, and she did it. And she did everything. Like, she won just about everything she put her mind to. And like I said, not many people can say they did something like that. And for her to do it at the time that she did and the way she did, like I said, the right way, is just fantastic.
A quick tweet, folks, from ESPN Women's Hoops on Twitter. A quote from Holly Warlick on Pat Summitt's legacy. She says, she taught me what character and integrity means. Holly Warlick on Pat Summitt this evening. And a quick tweet as well from our good buddy Myron Crawford, who says he's waiting for ESPN or the SEC Network now to show some of the greatest games played in Lady Vols history as well at this point in time. Going to some more of the reactions, trying to get some more reactions here. First and foremost here from our good buddy David over at Dishin and Swishin. We'll get to one quick quote from Stars forward Monique Curry, who said Pat Summitt was one of the reasons I even started to play basketball. She was the reason I knew I could play in college. I am forever grateful for the sacrifice leadership and barriers she broke down during her career. She will forever be remembered for not only being one of the best coaches to ever coach the game, but to a woman who raised and loved hundreds of players. Rest in peace to the legend, Pat Summitt. Former WNBA star and current agent Teacha Panachero was quoted saying today, "So sad to hear about the passing of Coach Summitt. True legend, pioneer, groundbreaker, and icon in all aspects of life. Thank you for all you did for the game we love. May your soul rest in peace." A quick statement from the U.S. Basketball Writers Association. Their statement goes as, quote, "An icon, leader, visionary, mentor, mom, and coach. Pat Summitt was all those things and much more. While her 1,098 victories, 22 Final Four appearances, 16 Southeastern Conference titles, 8 national titles, and 98 women's USBWA Coach of the Year honors are monuments to her greatness. Summitt's biggest impact and victories were away from the court, where she championed causes for equal women's rights, Alzheimer's disease, and had a 100% graduation rate." And Marquez, that's the thing, though, I've seen with some other people that have passed, notably Tony Gwynn of the San Diego Padres, who died from oral cancer from chewing tobacco. Pat Summitt, of course, with Alzheimer's, and also my good friend Mia McPullen, who's battling a rare form of DBA, of how these people try to raise awareness again for these things that don't have cures. Either, cancer is getting there slowly, but again, there is no cure for Alzheimer's, there is no cure for DBA, there is no cure for Crohn's disease. But Marquez, how important is it, though, that you do see figureheads like Pat Summitt or like other people advocating and really supporting, people living with these diseases?
Oh yeah, I mean, it just considering their platform, it's just something that they feel like they have to do. They want to do it, and they have to do it. And I think having someone of their magnitude bringing awareness and stuff like that, it gets people's attention, and it makes people want to learn more about these things. Because, I mean, excuse me, because I mean, it just shows how. I mean, I know a lot of us look up to these people as like these superheroes that are invincible, and they are just mega people, and they are in certain ways, but just like us, they're humans, and they deal with things just like we do. And for them to take the time out to bring awareness to not only help them but other people, it just shows how selfless these people are.
Getting back to more reaction, folks, from former player and current Stars GM Ruth Riley. Ruth says Tennessee has lost a legend. Women's basketball has lost an iconic trailblazer. The role has gained a legacy that is defined not only by championships won, but more importantly by the advancement of the sport itself. Every grown woman playing basketball today has been impacted in some way by the life of Coach Summitt, regardless of whether they wore a Tennessee jersey. We send our condolences to the Summitt family and all the We Back Pat community as well. Atlanta Dream guard and former Lady Vol Megan Simmons was quoted today by saying, "I am at a loss of words, really. I know she was a great woman that made a huge impact on my life and helped mold me into the woman I am today. She is not suffering anymore, and she made her mark in the world and touched the lives of many people. I'm just glad that God put her in my life and allowed me to share special moments with her." And one final quote, at least for now, from Sun Guard and former Lady Vol, Shakina Strickland, who said, "It hurts. This whole situation has been very difficult. She meant a lot to me, and she was a teacher on and off the court. It was an opportunity and blessing to play for her. She really helped me grow up and become a woman. She also always told me to stay loyal and respectful, and she always treated everyone the same. What he saw in these final days was what Pat Summitt was as a person. She did not give up easily, and she went out on her own terms and not on anybody else's terms." Close quote from Shakina Strickland. A quick statement, too, from the WNBA president, Lisa Borders, and from the WNBA itself. Lisa's statement reads, "A true coaching legend, Pat Summitt, rewrote the NCAA record books and left an incredible and indelible mark on sports. Even more than her incredible achievements on the basketball court, her legacy will be her passion for her sport and her commitment to inspiring the next generation of young athletes. All of us at the WNBA send our deepest sympathies to the Summitt family and to volunteers everywhere." Close quote from WNBA president Lisa Borders. Again, to reiterate, folks, at this point, just added right now at this point, ESPNU, ESPN Classic, and the SEC Network to air Pat XO and past Tennessee games at this point. We will link you folks to that on the network handle after the show ends. But again, ESPNU has now been added to the networks that will be adding in coverage about Pat Summitt here today. But again, ESPNU, ESPN Classic, SEC Network will be airing Pat XO and Tennessee games. The full schedule can be found on the ESPN Women's Hoops Twitter account. That is at that handle is at ESPN_Women Hoop for that. But once more, again, ESPNU, ESPN Classic, and SEC Network to air Pat XO, and also including past Tennessee games for the full schedule. Again, follow them on Twitter. They are, again, at ESPN_Women Hoop for more information about the about that for Pat Summitt's passing. The Connecticut Sun have released a press release about the passing of Pat Summitt. Current Sun head coach Curt Miller says Pat Summitt's impact on our sport is immeasurable. She has left a lasting impression on the sports world and inspired an entire generation of coaches and players. She showed us all that you could be tough and demanding while showing love and respect. Pat's footprints on the game will endure forever, and that's what I kind of got to earlier on in the day, Marquez, was Pat's legacy is not going anywhere. She really has paved the way, the trailblazer, the pioneer, the leader, but the torchbearer for women's athletes. And again, that's what I think is going to be happening for a long time. Marquez, your reaction to the Suns release again about Pat Summitt's legacy, because I think though that Curt Miller had hit it right on the head at the very end there of that statement.
Oh yeah, she'll always be remembered, and just like you said, people are gonna remember her fight and her love for everything related to basketball and her players and just her family in general. She was just the ultimate competitor and winner in so many different ways, and you can't forget something like that, because I mean, like everyone's been saying, she's broken down the walls for so many people and things that it's just something that's gonna live on forever.
So again, folks, Callum McClurg, Marquez Anderson, joining you folks here today at this point. A quick tweet as well from Jessica Robertson, who actually quoted that tweet from ESPN Women's Hoops. She said Pat Summitt was at the forefront of pushing broadcast visibility for women. Be sure to watch these games that they will put on the ESPN family of networks. Again, folks, just a very, very long day so far already. A quick tweet from one of our correspondents, from Reagan Patrick, from @_rap24. Reagan says, I've seen all of these games before, but I still get chills watching these games. And I think that, Marquez, all of us are going to feel goosebumps or feel, obligated to cry or laugh at something. But, Reagan, I think, just is right there. I go back sometimes and watch, old games I've announced or other things I've done in regards to either games I broadcasted or going back and hearing me announce a goal that was scored at a hockey game I was doing. But even now, I kind of get chills watching old games in any sport now. But Marquez, when you go and watch some of these games today for the next couple of days, is it going to kind of feel like a flashback to 2008 for you when you do go back and watch Tennessee play on ESPN or any of the networks, and then you see Pat Summitt there sitting on the bench and doing her thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I tweeted out earlier about one of the games that I remember like it was yesterday. It was a 2008 Final Four game, Tennessee and LSU in Tampa Bay. I knew we were gonna win that game. I just knew it. It came down to the final seconds. We were winning by 1, and all we had to do was get one stop and rebound, because we were seconds away from going to the Final Four. And I think the opponent would have been Stanford. I'm not quite sure about that, but I think that's who it was. But we got the stop. They missed the shot. Then all of a sudden, Alexis Hornbuckle, she comes in, gets the offensive rebound and the putback, and Tennessee wins. And I remember just sitting there in absolute shock, disgust, disappointment. Like everything was just like going over me, because I was like, no way did we lose this game. And I'm not quite sure if that game still is the lowest scoring in Final Four history, because it was 47-46, and I hope they play that game, because that's one of my favorite games I've seen her coach, because it really was something.
You know, I think back to when I had chatted with Candace Wiggins back in October of 2014, Marquez, about her college career at Stanford. And she remembers, though, that more so they played Tennessee either in a regular season game, maybe it was in the tournament somewhere. But all she remembers was Shannon Bobbitt, the great Shannon Bobbitt throwing in a half-court heave at the final horn to beat Stanford in a game. And she was like, "No, we lost how does this happen?" But then she remembers after the game having about a 30-minute heart-to-heart conversation with Pat Summitt, and just hearing her speak to her was by far one of the greatest things in her career that she forever cherishes about that. That's one of my favorite stories, though, about Pat Summitt, though, from a player's perspective, though, was hearing Wiggins talk about, here's Shannon Bobbitt, remember her best from her days in L.A. or Atlanta, but again, throwing in a half-court basket at the final buzzer to beat Stanford in a game, and just Wiggins being like, how did this happen to us? Kind of like, what you're talking about with Alexis Hornbuckle beating LSU in the Final Four that year. It's like, how does this happen? And stuff like that. By the way, folks, a quick note, but one of our great women's basketball correspondents, Debbie Antonelli, will be in studio with ESPNU, with ESPN covering Pat Summitt's legacy on ESPNU for coming up, I believe, either now or sometime soon. But again, check out Debbie Antonelli on ESPNU for more Pat Summitt coverage. As we welcome you folks back in here for hour number 2 of our program, here with Marquez Anderson of the Product Experts Network, Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego, again on our special daytime edition of WNBA 365, remembering the legacy left behind by a true pioneer for the women's basketball game, Pat Summitt, who passed away earlier this morning at the age of 64 after a 5-year bout with Alzheimer's disease. Pat Summitt, a 8-time national champion, 1987, 1989, 1991, 1996 through 98, and 2007 and 2008. Also finishes with a career record of 1,098 and 208, a 841 win percentage, won 16 SEC championships, and also was a 16-time tournament champion, was an 8-time conference coach of the year, 7-time NCAA coach of the year, was named the coach of the 20th century, and was awarded with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012, but also, of course, with the 100% graduation rate, over 38 years at the helm of Tennessee, and all 161 players under Pat Summitt's umbrella all graduated with their degrees from the University of Tennessee in that 38-year span. Looking back over some of the more stuff on Twitter, folks, again, Twitter is open. If you want to share some of your stories about Pat Summitt with us, again, it's at WNBA365, at Calamac3, or at O Marquez on Twitter, or hit us up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/WNBA365, or in our live chat box on the viewing page if you're viewing us here live on today's program. Marquez, I think that I pretty much have touched base so far in the 1 o'clock, in the first hour of our program here from 10 o'clock to 1. But Marquez, as we do, though, kind of think back to some more of the things here, and actually I do have one quick tweet I want to pass on, folks, from North Carolina men's coach Roy Williams, who says, "We lost one of the true giants in coaching in any sport, and regardless of gender today." At this point, and also Roy also goes on to say, "R.I.P. Pat Summitt, the epitome of coaching or greatness in coaching and leadership, truly a pioneer in women's athletics, paving the way for millions of girls to live their dreams." So Roy Williams, the men's coach at UNC, with some very good and very nice remarks about Pat Summitt and her everlasting legacy, folks. Again, to reiterate once more, again, there are 2 games in the WNBA scheduled for the night. Dream at Storm at 7 o'clock on ESPN3. Wings at Sparks at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Again, no official confirmation or word about the playing status of Megan Simmons, Glory Johnson, or Candace Parker. All 3 of those players, again, were players under Pat Summitt at this time. during their career. And we should mention, folks, as well, but Sierra Burdick was waived today by the Atlanta Dream, and she is not with the Dream here today. A quick tweet. Okay, so I thought it was going to be about Pat Summitt, but it was from Crystal Thomas, but I believe it was not in relation to in relation to Pat Summitt at this point. And yeah, and Marquez, as I kind of think here, kind of about and again, we kind of talked about this earlier on in the show again, Marquez. But again, we heard from Megan Simmons, we heard from, and we did see an Instagram in a IG post from Glory Johnson, but as I had kind of talked about with Candace Wiggins, when I talked to Candace Parker about her time at Tennessee, and it was kind of a two-part question and answer that we kind of had together between me and Ace in September of 2014. But, she more so talked about, I think I actually looked more about Candace at her retirement ceremony in February of 2014, when she had her number retired at TBA, when she had brought up the story about how Pat Summitt had benched her for missing curfew in the Final Four in 2007 when they were playing in Chicago during the tournament there, and also not only about how Pat Summitt held her players accountable in a very good way, Marquez, but also that tough love, though, that we kind of shied away from in sports now, is that tough love of a manager or a coach getting on a player at certain points, because Candace said, she could have, swept it under the rug and let her play, but Pat Summitt benched her for the first half in front of her family and friends and embarrassed Candace. But that was kind of where Parker told me that's where she really, had more love and more respect for her coach, because most coaches nowadays, I believe, Marquez, and it's true, would probably say, don't worry about it, we'll move on from here. But Pat Summitt, said, I'm going to bench you. You're going to learn from your mistake, and there's consequences for you missing curfew. So Marquez, I guess when you think about that, what are your thoughts again about how Pat Summitt held her players accountable for their actions both on and off the court during the course of the season, and also during the off season as well? Because again, that's something we don't see a whole lot happening in sports nowadays.
Oh yeah, she was gonna let you pay for whatever you did, whether it be good or bad, and she didn't. If you did something wrong, she didn't care if it would have cost them the game. You were gonna learn from it. If they were to lose that game, she wouldn't have cared, because she knows she did the right thing in making you pay for breaking rules. And a lot of coaches now, they don't exactly address those situations in the same way, especially when it comes to making their team potentially lose. A lot of coaches are so much about winning now that discipline and making people accountable for their mistakes, it just goes ignored in a way.
Once more, folks, Callum McClurg and Marquez Anderson joining you folks here this morning and afternoon here as we sit here and reminisce and reflect on a great career by legendary women's basketball coach Pat Summitt, again, who passed away today at the age of 64 from a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. Some more words here towards Pat Summitt. First from the University of Tennessee, Chancellor Jimmy G. Cheek, who says words fail to express how proud we are of that. Pat Summitt's name will forever be linked to the University of Tennessee. She is and always will be a volunteer. From former Tennessee and NFL quarterback Peyton Manning, he says, I've always been honored to call Pat Summitt my friend. She was always very supportive of my career, and I enjoyed seeing her back at Tennessee football games, or when she would come to Indianapolis to see Tamika Catchings play. We would always get together, and I made it a point when I came to Knoxville to visit with her, at close quote. From former Tennessee head football coach Philip Fulmer, who says Pat Summitt was many things to many people. Pat was a great person, a loving mother, passionate coach, and loyal friend. We shared a lot of years working together and spreading the word about Tennessee athletics. We had wonderful personal times talking about life, our teams, or helping each other recruit. Her legacy as a basketball coach is iconic, but her greatest legacy may well be through the Pat Summitt Foundation and her role in leading the battle against Alzheimer's. Vicky and I are grateful for Pat's friendship, and with two Lady Vols in our family, we appreciate we are appreciative of the opportunity she gave to so many young women. Close quote. A statement from Tennessee head football coach currently, Butch Jones. Butch says, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends of Pat Summitt. I had the privilege of spending time with Pat during my first year at Tennessee, and those are conversations I will cherish forever." When you think of all the great coaches in all sports, Pat Summitt is at the top of that list. Close quote from her, from head coach Butch Jones. From a statement from Florida women's basketball coach Amanda Butler, who says her impact goes beyond age groups, gender, and even basketball. Everyone knew Pat because she was successful, but more importantly, she stood for all the right things: character, toughness, discipline, hard work. She valued people and embraced the platform that basketball gave her. She was the ultimate leader, a hero, inspiration, and a role model. And you know, Marquez, I believe that is correct, though, that from Florida women's basketball coach Amanda Butler, again, of what Pat stood for, though, not just on the basketball court, but what we kind of touched base on, but also what she meant, though, in regards to everything, though, off the floor. We said gender equality, Title IX, the Lady Vol team name. But Marquez, also, in regards to that, how much, I guess I'd probably ask, though, has Pat Summitt, I guess, kind of influenced your life, though, as you have continued to evolve and watch the women's basketball game?
Yeah, she is just one of those people that I looked up to for a multitude of reasons, because as a kid, yeah, like I said, yeah, she was the coach of a team that I couldn't stand, but something I always noticed was that she never was disrespectful. She was always classy. She always just held everyone to a certain standard and expectation. And I think that's something we all should want to live to and put together in our lives, because I mean, everyone just can't and isn't as accountable as she is. She, no matter the thing, no matter what she stepped up to and tried to face, she always did it to the best of her abilities. That's something we all can take away from her life and just do in general.
Getting back to some more interaction on Twitter from the Indiana Fever, they put out a statement and a quote today saying she made an immeasurable contribution to our game. May she rest in peace. And then saying, thank you, Pat Summitt. From the Sun, Allison Hightower said, R.I.P. Coach Summitt. You set the standard for the women's game of basketball, and your legacy will always live on. New York Liberty Center, Kia Stokes says, Pat Summitt changed the game in so many ways. She broke records and set the standard. Rest in peace, Pat. Prayers to her family and friends at this point. From Indiana Fever head coach and also the soon-to-be head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores, Stephanie White. Stephanie says, I'm saddened to hear the news of Pat's passing. My thoughts and prayers are with her family, her friends, and the entire UT community. She's an ambassador of leadership, strength, and courage that transcends the sport. Her legacy lives on in all of those she touched. I'm forever grateful for the impact she made on me in the short amount of time that we spent together. Close quote. Looking over some more quotes here, folks. Again, a lot of great people, again, coming forward to express their gratitude, appreciation, love, and moderation for Pat Summitt here this morning and soon-to-be afternoon. We will, of course, keep you folks in the loop in regards to when we hear some other news at this point in time here this morning and this afternoon here today. Again, a lot of great stuff from some very good people and a lot of great friends and family out there, again, that have really shared some stuff. Again, it's Callan and Marquez joining you folks here for the next few minutes here. We'll be wrapping up our program at 11:30 this morning. So, again, if you want to get involved, again, it's at WNBA365, at Calamac3, or at O Marquez on our Facebook page at facebook.com/WNBA365. Again, as we, mourn and celebrate the life and everlasting legacy of the late, great Pat Summitt, again, who passed away this morning at the age of 64. And again, we will pass along one more time, folks, but again, 2 games on the schedule. Again, Atlanta, Seattle at 7 o'clock on ESPN3, Dallas and Los Angeles at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. We have not gotten any word from the Storm or Sparks in regards to any type of a moment of silence as of yet, but we will assume, we will bold, italicize, underline, and shadow the word assume there will be some type of a tribute beforehand this evening before those two games for Pat Summitt. And also, again, we do not know any type of status, again, in regards to either Megan Simmons, Glory Johnson, or Candace Parker, again, who were, again, players under Coach Summitt over at the University of Tennessee. Again, and we will, again, keep you folks posted with that. And as a reminder for us, again, there will be no programming for us this evening due to the nature of today's event. We'll be back with you folks for nighttime programming again tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern, back here on WNBA 365. Tyler Summitt again also confirming today there will be a private service for the family held sometime in the next couple days, and also there will be a public celebration of Pat's life at TBA, but again, time and date to be announced at this point in time. Once we get more word about that, we'll pass it along to you folks sometime soon. And also, as a reminder again, but from the Tennessee Athletic Department again, Pat's statue and plaza will be open today for you to drop off flowers or anything if you are in the Knoxville area, and there will be parking provided for you folks in a garage on the east side of TBA. Sometime also here today. Again, Cal McClure and Marquez Anderson holding down the fort here until 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern here on WNBA 365. And again, Marquez, as you kind of again just look back over a lot of things, again, Pat Summitt meaning so much to all of us in some capacity, whether it was, whether we met Pat in person or we just knew about Pat Summitt or what she's meant to all of us. But again, Marquez, to kind of touch base on a few other points I brought up earlier in the show again. Again, no word, again, as we said, buddy, about Simmons, Johnson, or Parker. But again, Marquez, what I guess we'll kind of go back again and say, what kind of emotions do you think is going to probably be going through the minds and the minds of Simmons, Glojo, and CP as their games again do approach? And again, we've only heard. At least I've only seen Megan Simmons and Glory Johnson put something out about Pat Summitt, nothing yet from Candace Parker. But I guess, Marquez, what is the emotion going to be like, though, for these three players as they do their job, but again, knowing that, again, their coach is not going to be able to watch or see them play?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be hard for them, but I think what they're going to do, I think they're going to play for her if they decide to play, and I think they're just going to remember all the things that she's done for them in their lives and their careers in general. And I think they're going to really play hard for her if they decide to play today.
And Marquez, the thing though that I also think about as well is something that I think I did not build until I was a senior in high school was the player-coach relationship. And I don't think I really had a very, I wouldn't say a bad experience, but I think that I really didn't build it until I got to my senior year in high school for that relationship. But Pat Summitt built a player relationship with everyone that was a part of her team, but more so, I think seeing her and Candace Parker embrace in Cleveland in 2008 after they won their second title really showed off a very, that there was cohesiveness and there was chemistry there, but also of how she also embraced, Catch and Shamika Holsclaw when they were winning their championships. But I guess, Marquez, it's kind of become a lost art, but, what are your thoughts about how Pat Summitt developed that player-coach relationship with everyone that, again, came through her program for 38 years?
Yeah, you'll be hard-pressed to find someone that didn't love her. Like, I don't think I've ever heard or read of any player having a problem with her in terms of her treatment or the way she coached them. Of course, as an outsider, if you were just looking, you'd think, wow, she's really tough and hard on them. Like, they must hate her. But the reality of it is that they loved her. It was the complete opposite. This person that you thought that was so big and bad, she was actually one of the most sweetest, kindest people that you ever would have met, apparently to people. And I think her relationship with her players just goes to show how much she fought for them and how much they appreciated her for doing that for them.
Folks, we are also right now working on getting some more of our media friends on our program. We're going to try to have another one of these shows later in the week. here sometime for Pat Summit. I do know, Marquez, that one of our good writers and good friends, Sue Favor from @Hoopism on Twitter, has really been it's been a very rough day personally for Sue, losing Pat, and then just a lot of things going on. But again, it just kind of shows you again of how much Pat Summit has really meant to a lot of people. Again, here today, once more, folks, to rekindle again, but he can catch ESPNU, ESPN Classic, and the SEC Network again have wall-to-wall coverage or tributes for Pat Summit on their networks. Again, you can catch some of Pat's greatest games on ESPNU right now. ESPN Classic is airing all 8 of her title victories as well on ESPN Classic today, and SEC Network has wall-to-wall coverage as well this morning about Pat Summit's passing. But again, once more to rekindle, Pat Summit, legendary women's basketball coach at Tennessee, passing away today from Alzheimer's at the age of 64. Marquez, let me just go back and rekindle, or just go to another talking point. Marquez, I'm sure it was a bit rough, but when you first heard about Pat being diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2011, and you still saw her coaching out there, I guess, what were your thoughts when you first heard the news that Pat Summit had been diagnosed with dementia and then eventually the Alzheimer's disease?
It was really heartbreaking because, I mean, you just don't expect to see something like that happen to someone of her nature. And like I said, a lot of people don't exactly know the dimension of what the disease is. A lot of people just think it's memory loss, but so much happens because of it. And I don't think as many people know. And for me, I was just really shocked just to hear something like that happening to her because, I mean, like I said, for all I've known her as, she was just strong, fiery, feisty woman that just fought and fought and fought. And to see something like that happen to her, I can't lie, I really had one of those, no, why her? Why? How did this happen to her type of moment? But she took it and she fought to the best of her ability. She fought as long as she could. And I think that's something we all are going to remember about her.
Yeah, I think that we all kind of get that way when we hear, like, whether it's been the passing this year of Prince or David Bowie or Muhammad Ali or even today, it's like, it's like that oh no moment of, we're losing somebody that we grew up either watching entertain us or playing sports or being an athlete or whatnot. But, that's, I think I kind of have the same type of reaction when I had heard about Pat first being diagnosed with it, as we have a tweet coming in here from Tanya Olick on Twitter, from @TOlick on Twitter, who says the world will never lose Pat Summit, as who she was and what she did will be around forever. We simply won't have her physically, her legacy living on forever at this point. But again, Tanya Olick with a good tweet here this morning as we continue on here on our Pat Summit tribute and legacy special edition program here on WNBA 365 here this morning. Again, folks, as a reminder, again, we will not be having any network programming here this evening due to the nature of today's events. We have canceled our programming in light of that. We'll be back with you folks tomorrow at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern, tomorrow evening for a recap of Wednesday's action and more talk about Pat Summit. And again, we are working on getting a little bit of a media roundtable set up for perhaps the weekend, perhaps. Once we kind of get a clear vision, we'll update you about that. But again, you can catch some of Pat Summit's greatest moments, again, on ESPNU, ESPN Classic, or the SEC Network. For that, a quick update just in here from the Pat Summit Foundation on Twitter at this point. They have released the following information about Pat's celebration of life that we can bring to you folks right now at this point. It will be held on Thursday, July 14th at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern at TBA. The celebration will be free and is open to the general public. So again, once more, Pat Summit public celebration of life will be taking place on Thursday, July 14th at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, and 6 o'clock Central Time from TBA on the campus, the University of Tennessee. A retweet from our good pal Eric Nimchuk at today's Fast Break from current DePaul head coach Doug Bruno, who says the fight for gender equality in America and the rest of the world is the torch Pat Summit passes to all of us thanks for the fight, coach. And he's right there, Marquez, in regards to, again, about not just women's rights or women's empowerment or Title IX in the sports world, but also in the political field and also in every walk of life, about how Pat Summitt really was the advocate for everything in regards to anything in regards to women's rights and stuff about that. But Marquez, what do you think? Because I think, though, that Doug Bruno hit it on the head again, that Pat Summitt was just more about, it was more about women's rights in the sports world. It was also about it in the political and real working world as well.
Oh yeah, a lot of people were able to just be inspired by her and do the things that she did and just be that type of person in their life that she was. I think, I just think a lot of people took what she did with them and they wanted to be that. And excuse me, it's really hard to not, feel down about it. But she, you can't even, it's really hard for me to describe her impact because, I mean, there's really not one word that you can use to describe her.
Yeah, now there is no one word in the dictionary or in the source that you can use to really say how much of an impact that has been felt, that has been left behind, and that will forever be left by Pat Summitt, again, who passed away earlier this morning at the age of 64 from a long 5-year battle against Alzheimer's disease. As a reminder, folks, once more, broken record, but we'll say it one more time, but first we have a tweet from Jasmine Thomas, who says, R.I.P. Coach Pat Summitt, grateful for the legacy you left, with a heart, praying hands, and basketball emoji. From there, and a quick tweet as well from Evan Childs, retweeted by Atlanta Dream guard Lasia Clarendon, who said, incredible coach with an incredible legacy, a true pioneer in women's sports, Pat Summitt, you will always remain a legend, close tweet from Evan Childs at this point in time. With that, folks, we have been here for an hour and a half. We will sound the final buzzer at 11:30, so there's still a few more minutes here. But Marquez, as we do, they'll get ready to sign off today for the day and for the evening as well. Marquez, how about your final thoughts that come to mind as you think about the final, just all around final thoughts about not only today's show, but also, again, about a legacy left behind by a true sports and true women's basketball legend and icon in Pat Summitt.
Yeah, she was a hero, the absolute definition, the epitome of a hero. She touched so many and she's helped so many that you can't help but appreciate and love her. Like, I don't think anyone can say one negative word about Pat Summitt because there's just no way possible, considering all that she's done for countless people. And I just think today just shows that.
Today definitely does show that. Now, folks, real quick, I do have a press release from the ESPN PR department who says that it is official as of now, but ESPN will now officially be dedicating day-long programming at least, to All About Pat Summitt here today. Looking at some of the programming, ESPNU will carry Pat's 9 for 9, Tennessee's SEC Tournament Championship wins from 05 and 20 through 2011, and the 1998 NCAA Tournament title game. ESPN Classic will be the home of Tennessee's title games, where Summitt led the Lady Vols to title wins in 96, 97, 98, 07, and 08. And SportsCenter will continue to pay tribute to Summitt throughout the day, speaking with loved ones and those who inspired her, including ESPN analyst Kara Lawson. So again, folks, here is the programming schedule for you folks at this point. For ESPNU, starting at 1 o'clock Eastern here today, Pat's 9 for 9. 2 o'clock will be the 05 title game versus LSU. 3:30 will be the 2010 title game versus Kentucky. 5:30 is the 98 title game versus Louisiana Tech at 5:30. These are all Eastern times, by the way, folks. 8 o'clock is again the 9 for 9, and then they will re-air the 9 for 9 today at 8 o'clock, 1:30 a.m., 4:30 a.m., and 8:30 a.m. Eastern for those start times. And they will also show 2 more games on ESPNU for that. On ESPN Classic, we'll have 96, 97, 98, 07, and 08. All those at 10 a.m., noon, 2 p.m., and 4 p.m., and 6 p.m. for those tournament victories for the championship wins for Pat Summitt. With that, folks, on what's been a very rough but very emotional day, but a day for us to sit and reminisce about a legend. But again, folks, once more, Pat Summitt, the legendary head coach of the University of Tennessee Lady Vols, again, has passed away from Alzheimer's at this point. And by the way, folks, actually, just at real quick, coming in here from our good friends at swishappeal.com, there is a press release out, but it is in regards to the Wings and Sparks game, but there is still no confirmation or discussion about whether Johnson and Parker will play in today's games. Again, that is both Megan Simmons of Atlanta, Glory Johnson of Tennessee, and Candace Parker of LA all playing tonight. But again, no word still about the status of those three players, that they will play this evening or not. But once again, folks, once more on what's been a very good day for programming today. But again, Pat Summitt, 8-time national champion, 1,000 victories, 16-time SEC champion, 16-time tournament champion, 8-time conference coach of the year, 7-time NCAA coach of the year, the coach of the 20th century, and a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, and with a 100% graduation rate. Legendary head coach Pat Summitt has passed away today at the age of 64 following a 5-year battle with Alzheimer's disease. With that, folks, for the entire WNBA 365 Network broadcast team, we send our thoughts, our prayers, our condolences to Pat's family, her friends, and all the players that have played for Pat during that time. Again, 161 of those players, again, we again are with you guys in spirit, and again, we really, again, send our deepest thoughts, our prayers, condolences, and our sympathies to Pat's family, Pat's friends, and the Tennessee Lady Vol basketball team and the entire Tennessee athletic department. With that, folks, for my partner in crime today, Marquez Anderson, this is Cal McClurg signing off for the night and for the day. We'll see you folks back here tomorrow again at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern. And then again, folks, thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing your stories and sharing your thoughts on a very, very impactful coach, friend, mentor, and all-around incredible person. Again, Pat Summitt passing away today at the age of 64. Till then, folks, for tomorrow night, until tomorrow night, have a safe day, drive home safely. Thanks for joining us again today, and enjoy the remainder of your day. This has been the WNBA 365 Network. For Marquez Anderson, I'm Cal McClurg. So long, and see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in and joining us. Good night, and bye-bye.